Hey Hotshot, it's Jess with Emotional Fire Academy here today to talk about worry and the highly sensitive person. Subscribe to my channel if you are an HSP looking to up level this year, grow, work with your sensitivity, grow beyond your sensitivity, whatever your emotional goal is. That's what we like to do here at Emotional Fire Academy. Welcome. I am Jess. I'm a master NLP practitioner and former firefighter. So, worry. What is worrying, really, at its core? Worrying is negatively forecasting a present or future event and then feeling the accompanying concern, fear, anxiety, negative emotions of that forecast. And there's a real urgency to worry, right? There's an urgency that if we don't worry, that we're going to get caught off guard by the worst case scenario, typically, or almost the worst case scenario. And I am not passing judgment on you. I myself am a recovering worrier, particularly about one of the things I really used to be concerned about was what other people thought of me, whether they were upset with me or not, whether what I would say or do would make them upset. So worrying about what other people were doing, that was a big point of worry for me. I don't do that anymore. And some of these tips I'm going to give you are things that I consistently practice, and they're so natural now. I've practiced them enough that they're a habit, and that's just kind of my baseline. So you too can reach this place. You can kick worry. And one of the books I'm reading right now, rereading actually, is called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. This book is excellent. It talks about how we keep ourselves in these bands of emotional and cognitive function, right? These limits. We have the bottom limit and an upper limit. And worry is often an upper limit problem. So especially when we're worrying about things we can't control or that we don't, we're not going to be able to control the outcome of something, we use worry as a way to come back into those limits. And it's essentially a way that we keep ourselves within, a certain emotional parameters. So if we're starting to feel good, our brain kicks in and we start worrying about something, worrying that we're going to lose the thing that is causing us to feel good. Then we descend, if we've gone above that upper limit, we descend back below it, and so that we feel safe again. It's familiar, it's practiced. So I love that concept. I highly recommend the book. I'll put the details below if you want to check it out. And in the book, the author says, chronic worry is an upper limit problem. Chronic worry is something that we use to bring ourselves back down when we do have a streak of feeling good. And he suggests that if it's something that we can easily fix, like maybe we've left the stove on at home, if we're worried about that, if it's something that we can take control and easily fix it and then move on to do that, then worry is helpful because it's indicating we need to take an action. But it's the chronic worry that the worrying about, again, people, situations, the world, worrying about the state of the world, those things are just totally out of our control. And so it's just kind of a way we use to bring ourselves back down emotionally. So I want to talk about some of the strategies that you can use if you do worry a lot, if you find yourself feeling anxious about the future a lot, if you find yourself being concerned about what's going to happen, what other people are doing. Here are some strategies, and you might not have to use all four. One or two of them might do, but this is a pretty comprehensive plan. If you do all four, these will help you get in the practice of dropping chronic worry, releasing it, moving on from it, and keeping yourself, moving above your upper limit, not using worry as a mechanism to bring yourself back down. So the first thing is kind of counterintuitive because, most of the time when we really look at the things that we worry about, many of them don't happen, right? The worst case scenario rarely happens. Sometimes we do hit the jackpot. The author describes hitting the jackpot on it. When we worry about something and the worst case scenario happens, that is very rare. On the opposite side, the best case scenario also rarely happens. So it's typically some flavor of in between, right? Between worst and best case. So to kind of neutralize that, the emotions that we're feeling from just imagining the worst case, we can also imagine the best case. So let's go through the steps here. I'm getting ahead of myself. So when we're worrying about something, maybe a situation, a person, imagine the worst case scenario. Go ahead and let your predictive mechanisms play out the worst case scenario in your mind. And then think about if this happens, what are the resources I have to move through this? It's almost like making a plan for the worst case scenario. This will release part of your brain that is trying to keep you safe. By coming up with a plan, this is how we are like, okay, I've thought about this is what I would do. And you can do it as seriously as you want. What are the resources that I would have on hand? Have I experienced this before, something similar, and how did I make it through it before? That's a resource, experience. What kind of either health services, mental health services, what kind of family support do I have? I have YouTube. YouTube is a resource for people who have experienced, if the worst case scenario transpires, people who have overcome that. So there's lots of resources that we have. This is what I would do, and just making a very loose, this isn't something we spend hours thinking about. This is a very, a couple of minutes just saying, okay, how would I make it through this? Knowing I would survive, and it might be really difficult, but I would make it through, and I would make it to the other side. So counting your resources and actually plotting them in your head, you should feel like, okay, if this happens, then I'm ready for it. I would have things that would help me through it. But we don't want to kind of fixate on that, because this is part of manifestation, right? Is putting energy towards visualizing a scenario and then feeling the accompanying emotions. And that's kind of what we're doing when we worry. We're visualizing the worst case and feeling the fear and the disappointment and the sadness or whatever negative emotion from that. We're feeling it as if it's real. We're kind of a little bit torturing ourselves with that scenario. So we don't want to kind of linger in that because even if we're priming ourselves in a way by worrying, and so if the scenario starts to unfold and it hasn't even finished yet, often we'll jump the gun if we've been priming ourselves for the worst case, and before the scenario has even finished, we're going to be like, we're going to jump into that narrative when it might play out differently, right? So we're going to preemptively again be like quick to label this situation as the worst case scenario. So we don't want to, again, linger in that, but having a little plan helps us kind of get past that initial hump of worry. What we then want to do is go to the best case scenario. What if everything worked out okay? What if it worked out better than okay? What if the best case scenario transpired? Spending a few moments visualizing what would I want to happen in this situation? What would I really want to happen? And feeling the accompanying good emotions of that. Visualizing, okay, if this played out the way that I wanted it to? Feeling that. Staying in your imagination in the goodness and squeezing out the good emotions from that is really the next step. Is what if the best case scenario happened? Because again, we're priming ourselves for that. And so when the situation unfolds, we'll be closer to that. We'll be closer to interpreting it as closer to the best case than the worst case, because we're priming ourselves for that. So again, however we're priming ourselves mentally, emotionally, and even using our language is how we're then going to lean that direction when we're interpreting the event while it's unfolding and after it's unfolded. So this is about priming yourself. So prepare for the worst, imagine the best, enjoy imagining the best, know that you're going to make it through no matter what. And then kind of the next step is reining in responsibility. Often when we have chronic worry and we worry about things we can't control, it's because our focus is outside of ourselves. We're looking at the world. We're looking at another person. We're looking at a situation that has a lot of variables that we are not involved in. And so we want to rein in that responsibility. Turn the focus towards ourselves. Turn it back again. If you've imagined the best case scenario and you're still thinking about this situation, turn your focus back to you. Attend to yourself. Do some self-care. Because really, we're ignoring the most active component, which is our own mind and our own imagination. And that is what we need to attend to. We need to attend to ourselves. We need to claim our responsibility. Other people are responsible for their emotions, their thoughts, their judgments. The world is responsible for running itself. We don't have to take responsibility for that. And part of the worry is this overwhelm of taking on everybody else's responsibility. We're just responsible for ourselves, our own reactions, our own responses, our own feelings. And so when we turn it back and say, whoa, that other stuff isn't me, I'm just going to handle me. I'm just handling me in this situation. I'm just handling me. Just have to worry about me and what I'm feeling. And that again will alleviate some of that overwhelm of putting too much responsibility out into the world and then trying to manage that, manipulate it, take care of it before it happens, before something bad happens. That's the overwhelming part. So then we kind of want to return our focus, now that we've kind of turned inward, return our focus to our goals. Because really, and this is kind of what the author is saying, these are the things I suggest, but one of the points that the author makes is that, this is an upper limit problem. So it's something that essentially keeps us from our goals. It distracts us from our own personal goals, dreams. So we kind of want to return our focus to our own goals, because that will hold our attention. That will draw our attention away from the worry. And knowing, we've come up with a plan, we've imagined the best case scenario, we've kind of taken responsibility for ourselves again, brought that back, and then it's time for us to go back to our own goals, refocus on what we want in life, what we're pursuing, what makes us happy. Go back to those things. Because if we don't, we're just going to go back into the cycle, right? We're going to use worry again to distract us. And that's really one of the essential skills, is just knowing how to direct our attention. So bring our focus back to our own life goals. And that's how we kind of break out of the pattern of worry, break free from it. So comment below, let me know what you thought about this, and thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.